Hello once again as we welcome you to the wrap-up of Event 7 of Season 5 of SailGP. It's the Emirates Great Britain Sail Grand Prix Portsmouth, alongside Olympian Stevie Morrison and former Team GBR athlete Hannah Diamond. I am Todd Harris. Wow, what an event. Hannah, we'll start with you. Portsmouth really turned out, not only the fans, but the conditions were ideal.
Yeah, I don't think we could have asked for much better, really, could we? The racing was close all weekend. We had some kind of standout performances, but, you know, just to see the number of people who turned out to watch the racing in Portsmouth was really, really awesome.
Stevie, she talks about standout performances. I know she means Emirates GBR because they did a fantastic job, but in the end, it was the Kiwis. Who impressed you the most?
Oh, well, I mean, Emirates GBR did come back from a really tough middle bit of the season. Well, we're still in the middle, aren't we? But that little bit, you know, they had an amazing start to the season, and they've come back really strong. So, yes, of course, to deliver like that on home turf. I think the Italians and the Swiss, if I'm honest, if we want to take it, well, I mean, you know, we sort of had the, you know, two of the titans in the final, didn't we, with Great Britain and New Zealand. None of us are surprised to be talking about them. But I think the Swiss making a final was massive because, you know, whatever reason, be it choking because of pressure or just not quite having that experience or whatever it is, they've always kind of had a few good results and then some catastrophic ones. So a final was awesome. And then the Italians, you know, there's signs of progress. I mean, you want a linear improvement curve, don't you? That kind of shows you've got things to back up what you're doing. So yeah, I thought the Italians and I thought the Swiss were real standouts for me this weekend.
All right, let's break it right down because there was all kinds of, I don't say chaos, but it wouldn't be a normal SailGP event unless something happened. And we talk about the French. Before the racing even got started, we're sitting here watching, and all of a sudden you see the French, and the top section is basically gone.
It's that great blur. Yeah, I mean, that was just, I mean, it was gutting, wasn't it? It was gutting for all of us. Of course, you know, you're firstly petrified someone might be hurt. You know, you can't underestimate. Hannah mentioned it. I think, you know, sometimes we miss it, but Hannah mentioned just they're big boats, aren't they, in person? Yeah. Like, it's big gear.
Yeah.
Yeah, and, you know, when something like that happens, your first thought is, you know, is everyone okay? But secondly, like, can you figure out what happened in the moment? And, you know, sometimes it's not worth digging into that too much, but so fortunate for the French that this location was Portsmouth because SailGP Technology is just down the road. So they were able to get the new components, building sort of a build-up of spares so that if something breaks in the future, there are those components that you can put things back together. And I think they probably would have been a bit disappointed with how they started the day. They kind of were mid-fleet at the beginning of that first race today, then fell to the back, but then came back strong with two good race results at the end of the event. But for the overall standings, it's going to make it much harder work for them to get close to that grand final.
Hannah, these are your home waters, so I'll ask you this question. Why do you think teams that we usually equate as being one of the top teams in the league, Spain, Canada, why do you think they really struggled on these waters this weekend?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting question because quite often we talk about teams underperforming, and I actually don't think it's so much to do with that. I think the margins at the top of the fleet are so tight. This weekend was so much about starting and executing around that Mark 1. You had to be really hitting the line super fast, making sure that you had space to make that first maneuver so that you could pick your gate mark. We saw the left-hand turn was really strong all day yesterday and for the beginning of racing today as well. So it sort of really rewarded those teams that could execute rather than just make that. The plan was sort of obvious in a way. And I think for me, the biggest thing is, you know, a lot of teams can perform on any given day, but it's the ones that drop down and don't understand why. Those are the teams that are going to find it really hard at the back end of the season.
Well, the team that really turned the nitrous on, especially on Super Sunday, Stevie, had to be the Black Foils. But when the start of the final came around, they looked like they were out of it. Not a great start for them. But I think I said it in the broadcast, you can never count out Pistol Pete.
No, you can't ever. I mean, that Kiwi team, they're serial winners, aren't they? And there was a few wind shifts. I do think that sort of suits them when there's opportunities to minimise that course, you know, distance they sail up the ladder. They do a good job. And yeah, I mean, you know, we're quick to criticise. Maybe we should take a moment to actually say well done to Leo Takahashi, the flight controller. That was a tricky day out there. They have struggled on these new T-foils. They've not been as good. It's a simple thing. You know, Andy Maloney, they lost probably, if not the best, you know, it's a competition. Is it Jason Waterhouse? Is it Luke Parkinson? Is it Andy Maloney on the best flight controller? But I'd argue it's out of them. Although Joel Rodriguez will probably, you know, hit me with a bit of tapas for saying that. I don't know. But, you know, there's some really top guys. So Leo's had to step into some seriously big boots. And, yeah, there's been a few moments where it's maybe looked like he's got a lot on. But we should actually now turn around and say, well, they look really fast today. They made the least mistakes and they won the event. And yes, Pete and Liv did a brilliant job tactically around the course. You got Blair Trim in the win. You're going to be doing pretty well, you know. But Leo's got to step up and deliver at that level. And today he absolutely did. So I actually think under the pressure of that, you know, we should congratulate Leo and say well done.
So the Kiwis have now won event 1, which is in Dubai. They win event 7 in Portsmouth. And I want to turn my attention, or your attention, to Switzerland. They came on strong. They looked good all weekend long. But how gutting is that for them to get into the final and then say, okay, they had a real chance of winning this thing. They put themselves, especially in the first 2 legs, hey, you guys might get this win. And then for they have the issues on board, the technical issues to shut it down. That's got to be so frustrating.
Yeah, and I think, you know, they'll have plenty of things to take away from this weekend, which are really, really positive. We've seen them in the past when they get near other boats, they're put under a bit of pressure, they can tend to crumble. And we did see, you know, glimpses of that at times today, especially when they were trying to rush their maneuvers. But for me, they sort of stood the test against some of the big teams. They had Bonds Flying Ruse trying to put the pressure on to try and jump them to get that 3rd spot in the final, and they reacted really, really well to that. So despite the disappointment of them not being able to finish that final race for technical reasons, I think they'll be really happy. And it's all about kind of taking the learnings, the positive forwards into the next event in Sassnitz and into the back half of the season.
And you bring us to the next event, which will be event number 8 at Sassnitz, Germany. First time visit for SailGP, Stevie. What can we expect? Have you been there, and what do you know about Sassnitz?
I think just sailing on the Baltic in general is normally a really nice place to sail. There's a slightly different salinity to the water, so there'll be some interesting things from a technical point of view. How do the boats foil, and how do they perform there? And of course, just the logistics of these event sites, getting comfy in the area. So you've got to hope that, you know, perhaps for a couple of the teams that, well, I've just been disappointed with, I suppose.
Yeah.
I know a short way of doing it. I've been disappointed with the Germans. Been disappointed with Rottwell Denmark, to be honest. You know, Rottwell Denmark I see as one of the top teams, and I spent a bit of time looking at the data between events, and they sail the boat so well, but the results aren't showing it. And ultimately, all that matters is results.
Yeah.
So for Germany and for Denmark, you know, it's the kind of patch of the water you'd hope they were good on. So I hope it's a chance for them to really kickstart their season second half. To give the German home fans something to really cheer about with the German team. But, you know, that Danish team is a strong, strong team, and I want to see them back on the front foot. But right now they're not. They're on the back foot.
And I got to start thinking, Hannah, final question to you is a lot of these teams are going to start saying, okay, let's do the math, because we're coming down to the sharp end of the season where points are not available. I mean, if you're down outside of the top 6, your season, you might be looking at season 6.
Yeah, that's right. And I think we'll start to see a real split in kind of ambition and goals for the back half of the season. You know, you've got the teams who are definitely in contention to make the grand final. You've got those who are, you know, if everything goes well, then we can still put ourselves in with a shout. But actually, you know, this league is only going to get busier. It's only going to get more hotly contested as the top teams get better and better. Those teams who are in sort of the bottom third of the fleet are going to have to be asking some serious questions. There's not a lot of training time available. The event schedule is so tight to get to each of those venues and get everything set up on time. They really need to start investing some time in developing those sailors. So if there's a question mark on any of the positions on board, or even just building up the resilience within your team to account for injury, illness, whatever it might be going forwards, the schedule is not going to have a break in it coming forward. So, you know, we might see some of the teams who make up that bottom third of the fleet start to try some new things, which might not pay dividends right now, but they're investing in season 6 perhaps.
So as we look to the next 3 events, all in European waters, next up it'll be Sassnitz, Germany. Then after that, it's on to Saint-Tropez, France, which the fleet should know very well. And then another first-time visit as we make our way to Geneva, Switzerland. So point of the matter is, August 16th and 17th, next up for SailGP, it will be the Germany Sail Grand Prix in Sassnitz. We hope to see you there. It'll be very exciting, and we'll see who emerges as the champion. So on behalf of Stevie Morrison and Hannah Diamond, I'm Todd Harris. We will see you then.